Hello again, ALC. We are coming up to a day of prayer and fasting on Tuesday the 18th of March, which we've set aside as a church. And so just to help us prepare for that day, we thought it would be helpful just to pull together a couple videos just to prepare us and give us vision for what we're going to be doing. And in this first video, I'm just going to attempt to answer the question, why are we doing this? Why are we setting aside a whole day in our calendars to pray and also to fast while we pray? And I guess the easiest answer, the Sunday school answer to that question is that Jesus told us to do this. So in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, you can read this part in Matthew chapter 6. Jesus is talking about prayer and fasting, and significantly, he doesn't say if you pray and if you fast, but he says, when you pray and when you fast, which shows us that for Jesus, he didn't expect fasting to be a kind of optional extra to the Christian life, which we could use at certain points as we find helpful. He expected it really to be part of the frequent rhythm of our lives, that his disciples just would fast. And so actually, if you look at the early church and the way they conducted themselves, what you see is that they just did this. It was part of their regular lives. One kind of discipleship manual that was produced in the 2nd century called the Didache instructs new Christians to fast twice a week on Wednesdays and Fridays from sundown on the Tuesday till sundown on the Wednesday and so on. And that was just part of their lives in response to this kind of command and expectation from Jesus. That's what we talk about when we think of fasting as rhythm. And that is kind of, the general reason why we're doing this. Why are we fasting? Well, Jesus kind of expected this to be part of our lives. But there's also, for this particular day, a kind of more specific reason that we're fasting too, which ties into another theme we see in the scriptures, which is that fasting is not just to be a rhythm in our lives, but there's also times when it is a response to a certain challenge or need. You see this particularly in the Old Testament, when there are times when all the people of God come together to fast and pray for a specific thing. So for instance, in 2 Chronicles 20, we see the king Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. He's surrounded by enemies. And so what does he do to kind of counter this threat? He calls the people of Judah to fast. You see it again in the book of Ezra, when Ezra the priest is about to lead the people out of exile back into the homeland, their promised land. And he knows that that journey is going to be beset by all sorts of difficulties. What he does is he gets people to pray and fast for the success of that journey. And then one final example, Esther, chapter 4. She's about to go in to see King Xerxes, knows she could lose her life if it goes badly. So what does she do? She gets all of Israel to fast for her. And so what we see in the Bible is that fasting also has this kind of power to accompany our prayers when there is a specific need or a challenge we need to respond to. And as a church, we just kind of feel we're in that sort of situation. 2025 has been a great start to the year, but we do feel God kind of prompting us on certain things. We feel him putting on us this heart for mission, transforming this building with a heart to reach out, and we want to pray for wisdom for that. We also are encouraged by how God is partnering us with Bagshot for the renewal of that church, but we also don't kind of see every step in the road ahead. We want to ask for his wisdom, his provision there. And then just lastly, we all know we're growing as a church, which is great, but it does mean, one practical thing is that space is tight on a Sunday. We've moved around a bit this year. Kind of just asking, what are you doing here? Is there something new you're doing in us? And we feel just the best way to seek God together would be to just set aside a day to pray and fast and expect to hear from him. So that's why we're doing this. In the next video, which we'll release soon, Tom is going to talk a little bit about how we're going to, practically how are we going to fast together. But for now, let me just ask you again, book this in your diaries. A day, you still go to work and do all your normal things, but a day that we're also just going to set aside to pray and fast together to seek God for what he's going to do in our church.